I got something here I think you'll really enjoy seeing.
The groups of guys at the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop are known, mostly, for their skills in appraisal and making the right deal for the right amount of money. But they've had deals that have gone wrong in the worst way. Allow me to show you some of them.
Hey, before we get into the video, be sure to enter our brand new giveaway. We'll be giving away any of these items. It's your choice. To enter the giveaway, leave a like, comment the keyword, subscribe, turn on notifications, and most importantly, watch the whole video. It's that simple.
8. Say It Ain't So.
I have a book signed by Shoeless Joe Jackson.
Sports items can be incredibly valuable to the right people. For not only can they get big bucks in terms of trade and exchange value, but if the right buyers are out there, they'll pay even more for it. The big thing to remember though is that you have to make sure that it's real, because if it's fake, it's not worth the paper that it's printed on. In one episode, a man named Joe came in and had a book that he claimed was signed by legendary and infamous Major League Baseball player Shoeless Joe Jackson. Rick Harrison was behind the desk, and you could see that he was entranced by the item. Fanboy reactions are Rick Harrison's thing, but in this case, you could see why. Shoeless Joe Jackson was illiterate and thus had one of the most rare signatures out there because he couldn't and wouldn't sign much due to his bad handwriting. However, this also made it so that many people would forge his signature to try and hike up the value. Despite knowing this, Rick not only bought the book, he spent $13,000 on it. Not a smart move, because after the deal, on which he didn't consult any of his fellow experts or his family, he went to a book expert who showed him that the signature was a fake. Disheartened, he asked for a second opinion. He got another confirmation that it was indeed not the signature of Shoeless Joe Jackson. So not only did he lose money, he lost it all on an item that is now barely worth anything. That'll teach him to make purchases like this without consulting an expert. 7. Chum's risky business.
I have my uncle's comic book collection.
When it comes to Chumlee, he's both one of the most fan-loved people on Pawn Stars and the biggest hindrance to the shop, because he does dumb deals that cost a lot of money in the end. In season 15 of the show, a woman named Chelsea came into the store with 7 large rectangular boxes full of comic books. Chumlee was behind the desk and started to haggle her for a deal. Comics are risky business in terms of value. A lot of the value is dependent on the comic itself, when it was released, who made it, and so on and so forth. If they were from the early days of comic books, they would be more valuable than a comic book from, say, the 1990s. So knowing what you have is important. To his credit, Chumlee knew that the comics weren't worth the $2,000 that the customer was asking for, if for no other reason than even if there was one very valuable comic in the pile of 7 boxes, it may not be worth that much. However, he eventually bought the comics for $500. The problem here is that he didn't get an appraiser to look at the comics, and when they did after the purchase, that expert broke it down that at best, the comics were only worth $200. Needless to say, Rick wasn't happy about the exchange and chewed out Chumlee for his risky business. And it's not hard to blame Chumlee for not doing his due diligence with this. 6. Fender Stratocaster.
Hey Rick, I have a guitar for you.
Okay. Oh, this is your guitar?
Yes.
Okay.
During one season, a musician named Vic came in to sell his 1961 Fender Stratocaster. This actually is one of the most legendary guitar brands out there, as it was made in one style and hadn't changed much since that point. For Rick Harrison, he felt an immediate love for the guitar, as he was a fan of Jimi Hendrix, who played famously on a guitar just like this. Given the history of the guitar and the fact that it was played by a published musician in Vic, Rick Harrison decided to buy the guitar for $55,000, which is an incredible amount for a guitar not owned by a major star. And sure enough, this is what came back to haunt him in the worst way. For though the guitar was in perfect condition, not a lot of people saw the value that Rick did, let alone wanting to pay the $90,000 that Rick was asking for it. So eventually, he decided to try and recoup his money by putting the guitar at auction. But that failed too, because it only got him $20,000 at auction, meaning he had just lost about $35,000. 5. Small car, small worth. While pawn shops don't technically get a lot of cars, you can make a lot of money off them if you play your cards right. But if you play them wrong, it ends badly, very badly. A great example of being careful what you buy happened to Rick Harrison when he was brought an Austin Healey Sprite. The Austin Healey name is very respected, and their cars can be very valuable when taken care of right, and, of course, the right year and model. The Austin Healey Sprite actually is a very rare model. They were originally built to be small enough to fit into a bike shed, and only around 29,000 of them were made. Rick really liked the car, but the ride wouldn't start, which should have been a warning sign to Rick. The owner told him that it was just some minor issues and that it could be patched up easily, so Rick got the car for $5,000. But when he took the ride to his mechanic, he learned the truth. The damage on the inside was much greater than he was told, and because of this, it would actually take $6,000 to find and get the parts needed to make it not only work, but keep it authentic. This was a major blow to Rick's ego because he's usually better at spotting scams like this. But sadly, it didn't go down like he hoped. 4. Stolen goods. The selling of stolen items is a big offense in the world of merchandise, and it can happen at the times you least expect it. And despite the team at the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop being very good at their jobs, this indeed happened to them. One of the most famous occasions is when a man named Ryan came in with a shekel of Tyre, which is a silver coin that was given out in Lebanon back from 130 BC to 79 AD. But what is most interesting about the coin, or so the seller said, was that this might have been one of the infamous 30 pieces of silver that was paid to Judas Iscariot to betray Jesus Christ of Nazareth in the Bible. Even without that history, it seemed like a deal too good to pass up, so they bought it. Not long after, a sheriff showed up and revealed that the coin had been stolen before it was sold to them. Not by Ryan, but by someone else. Thankfully for the team, they weren't held accountable and they were actually allowed to keep the coin due to insurance payouts. So that means a happy ending for all, right? Not so much. Rick Harrison liked the coin and paid $1,600 for it. But at best, a typical shekel of Tyre would only be worth around $1,200 if it was kept in its original state. Ryan had cleaned the coin and thus devalued it, making the loss more than $400. So not only did they have a legal issue to settle, they also had to deal with losing money on the coin. 3. You're out.
What do we got? Hey, I got a 61 Willie Mays uniform.
Let's head back to the world of sports, and sadly, to another case of forgery that hit the Pawn Stars pretty bad. In this case, though, it was a uniform apparently worn by the legendary Willie Mays, who many consider to be one of the greatest baseball players of all time. When the customers brought it, Corey Harrison behind the desk, and Chumlee wasn't far behind. To his credit, he knew exactly what to look for in order to verify that it was a real MLB jersey from Willie Mays' time. The stitching, the look, the feel, everything was right, but there was 2 things that were off about it, one of which was pointed out by Chumlee, of all people. The uniform claimed to be from 1955, and yet it was in pristine condition. Mays was known for stealing bases and getting dirty nearly every game. Even if he didn't, there should be some wear and tear on the item, but there wasn't, which should have been a red flag for the more experienced Corey Harrison. Then, the customer also didn't have any certificate of authenticity on him, which made it even more suspect. But Corey felt it was real, and so he spent $31,000 on it. Unfortunately, no one bought it for the massive price tag that he had on it, and not unlike his dad, put the item up at auction. Though he did get $19,000 for it, it turned out to be a fake in every sense of the word. There are many ironies to this situation, but the most important of which is that another Harrison fell for another fake sports product. Oh, and Chumlee could tell it was fake. How sad is that? 2. Diamonds are rough.
I'm Corey from Pawn Stars. I have 2 diamond rings here. I'm going to show you which one's real and which one's fake and how to tell.
Scams are a big part of the merchandise business because there's always someone looking to game the system. And for the late old man, he was there when a massive scam hit all of Las Vegas. You see, diamonds are infinitely valuable if gotten in the right way and in the right shape and are in the right quality. But then, an epidemic of cubic zirconia started to emerge. What is cubic zirconia? Well, to put it bluntly, it's fake diamonds. But they weren't made as a cheap knockoff, they were made to fool people into thinking they were real diamonds. And thus, they would sell to people who would look at them and go, "Oh, those are diamonds!" Every pawn shop in the world, including the late Richard Harrison, was fooled by these fake diamonds, and his store lost tens of thousands of dollars because they were unknowingly buying these fakes. The only positive that came out of this was that there eventually became a test to figure out which were real and which were fake. In fact, Corey Harrison, his grandson, made his own video on how to test for the fakes. It was a hard lesson, and a lesson that has long since been passed down, but at the time, it no doubt was a hard thing for the old man to swallow. 1.
Mind if I play a couple tones?
Sure, absolutely.
What's there to say about Chumlee? He may be a star on the show, but he's no Harrison, not even close. He got into the store's team because of his friendship with Corey and became a fan favorite character on the show because of his stupidity and comedy aspects, which has led to several items being bought by him despite them having nowhere near the value that he thinks. Now, while the comic issue from before was one thing, and arguably a fair deal that just went bad, another time with a Gibson mandolin wasn't so forgivable. He was minding the shop alone when he was brought what he was told to be an authentic Gibson mandolin. And since the others weren't able to help out in the appraisal, that meant Chumley had to do all the work by himself. He was told by Rick Harrison to not buy anything over $1,000, but he remembered Rick Harrison eyeing a mandolin like this one earlier but was unable to get it, so he got this one for $1,500. But upon showing it to an expert, he found out that it was a fake, one of hundreds out in the world. And to make matters worse, the value of this fake mandolin was a mere $100. So Chumley got serious egg on his face. The Harrisons had to deal with another of his screw-ups, and the shop lost money. Not a good day all around.